A lot of people like me have a guardian. I don't. Instead, I use something called supported decision making. Supported decision making is an alternative to guardianship where the person, me, picks a group of people they trust to help them make decisions. I am the decision maker in my life. This is my support team right here, as you can see right here. I'll do a quick little scroll down since this is in rotation. And I'm also going to just scroll down to the next slide. Let me explain how I got here. When I was 16 and in school, my mom and I were told that I needed full guardianship. This didn't feel right for us. My mom had learned about supported decision making, and we decided to try it in my life. To me, supported decision making is just another tool in my toolbox I have. Oops, give me a sec. This one? Okay. Supported decision making was a great alternative for me. I started by choosing my supporters. I decided on different people who would help me with different parts of my life. My first supported decision making plan only included my mom, dad, brother, mentor, and therapist. But as I grown older, my plan had evolved, and I've added many other supporters to my team in different areas in my life. Because of supported decision making lets me keep my rights, I can change my own plan as my needs and life change over time. I am the one in control of my life, not a judge or guardian. No offense to anyone that's on this call that is one of those two. Oh, give me a sec. In 2021, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, which is a rare form of cancer. This was during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, just my luck. This was during the height of the COVID, I was already using supported decision making in my life, so it gave me some comfort to know I would have support going through this new life journey. However, COVID-19 restrictions made using supported decision making harder. We had to advocate with the hospital to have my supporters with me at my appointments. My hope is that when the bill becomes law, hospitals will be required to respect supported decision making as a way of accommodating people with disabilities. It will then be recognized as a right and choice everywhere. Just getting that ready. I found out about supported decision making when my mom and dad went to a workshop about it. I thought it was a good idea at the time, especially since this was basically how we did things already. Supported decision making just gave a name to what we were already doing. I'm going to tell you all about the first time we really put supported decision making to the test with other people that have never heard about it. In 2021, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, which is a rare form of cancer. From the day I found out I had cancer to the day I had to go meet my medical team was only a few days, which did not give me much time to process just how sick I actually was. Before we went to meet my medical team, my mom and dad and I sat down to make a plan to prepare. Throughout the years, we always try to make plans when we're going to an unexpected event so that I would be best supported. A plan which we all thought was great was 3 of us would go into the doctor's office. I would say hello, and my mom would explain if I would need to, I would be spending the rest of the time in the waiting room on my computer while my mom and dad listened to the doctor to gather the information. My mom would write down everything the doctor said, and then when they were done talking, my dad would come get me, and my mom would break down the information to me so I would understand it with the doctor's help. We all thought this was a great plan, except the one thing we forgot. We forgot to tell the doctor what to expect when we got there. It took some time took some convincing on our side to the doctor because I was over 18 and HIPAA laws, but thankfully, because my doctor realized that this was going to be the only but thankfully, my doctor realized that this was going to be the only way to get the information into me. He went along with the plan. We are so thankful that my doctor went along with our plan because it really made a difference in my care, knowing I was going to get my information the way I felt comfortable and that he was supportive of my way of communication at the time.
So this was our first time we ever had to really educate others about supported decision making. We were able to use supported decision making, even though there is no law yet in place in Massachusetts. We all looked at supported decision making as, especially right then and there in the hospital, as an essential accommodation that Jonathan really needed to receive his medical care. I was able to break down information for Jonathan alongside his medical team, so then Jonathan could process the information. And really what this did was create just a wonderful working team and relationship moving forward with his medical team.
There's another time that my support person, Eric, who is also my brother, was thinking about me being the decision maker. My brother is 23 years old, and honestly, is the best brother and always had my back and everything. He's like a friend to me, as well as always tries to give me many opportunities as I want to be involved with his friends in different settings. One day, my brother was over my house. He lives in his own apartment, but comes over and eats our food and does his laundry with our stuff. We were talking like usual, and he told me he wanted to talk to me about something important. I said, sure. And Eric said, I think I know the answer to this, but I have been thinking about it. I wanted to ask you if something happens to and something happens to mom and dad and they die, where would you like to live? My answer was, no offense, Eric, but I do not want to live with you. Eric said, that is what I thought you would say, and now I want to know where you would like to live. My answer was, I want to eventually have a wife and kids and live with them. Eric said, do you want to live in walking distance from me, driving distance close by so we can see each other a lot if need be? My answer was, I would I would like to be close just in case I needed something. It does not have to be walking distance, but close enough that you could get to me in a few minutes, or I could Uber to you if I needed to. Now, here's the best part. My mom, who was in the other room and came in when she heard us talking, and she said, wait, give me a sec. Wait, really? I should have had this conversation with you both because I just assumed you would live with Eric, but I'm so glad that you both were able to discuss this and see what everyone's decisions are. I assumed you both would take care of each other. In my mind, I saw that as living together, but I'm glad you both can decide what is best for you both.
So this conversation was very eye-opening for me as a mom. I just assumed that both the boys would live together, but I love how they both had different ideas and would still support each other. This conversation between Jonathan and his brother Eric just really demonstrates to me as a mom too, how much supported decision making has given Jonathan so much more confidence and increased his own decision making skills, which continue to evolve as he evolves.
Fighting cancer has been one of the hardest journeys of my life. I have been through a lot of hard journeys already. I'm so thankful I was given the freedom to choose how I go about my treatments. Having been able to use supported decision making during my cancer journey was really a life saving for me and helped me make my own decisions while battling cancer. I would not be the person I am today without supported decision making. For example, when I was 6 months into chemotherapy and 2 weeks into radiation, I came home one day and my body and mind were feeling horrible and hopeless. I ended up crying. I ended up in my bedroom crying and just really wanted to give up. I told my mom, I do not care what happens to me. I just wanted to stop, even if the tumor causes me to die. My mom had to take some time to process this all herself. But when she came back into my room, she came back not as my mom, but as my support person. She said to me, Jonathan, I do not know what the answer to this all is, but if you can put your faith in me as your support person, I'm going to try my hardest to help you figure this out. From there, I gave my mom the okay to contact my medical team, and together they all came up with a different plan for me to think about. After the meeting, I was able to talk to my supporters about the plan, get my questions answered, and then I agreed to move forward with it. The plan ultimately saved my life while also taking care of my mental health at the same time, thanks to support decision making.
So this was just the hardest situation I've ever faced as a parent. I've been asked so many times what would have been different in this situation if we had had full guardianship for Jonathan. And my answer is nothing would have been different. We had been practicing supported decision making before Jonathan was sick. And one of the most important parts of supported decision making for Jonathan is that his voice and wishes be heard. It's always been just really part of his journey. Of course, I did not want Jonathan to stop treatment, but I also saw everything he was going through, and cancer was happening to Jonathan. It was not happening to me. It was his body and his mind, not mine. And as a supporter, it was my job that I took really seriously as his support person and separated myself from being his mother, which is, I don't wish that on anyone, but it does need to be done sometimes. And, I'm okay, honey. It just, it was really my job to make sure his voice was heard and to support him, even if it was a decision that I did not agree with. I am so thankful and feel so blessed that Jonathan was able to be open-minded to let me contact his medical team at this time. We were able to hear what choices that would benefit him, his health, and his mental health. And it's just really important for Jonathan to be the guide of his journey, not for me. That's sweetie.
Poor decision making truly makes me feel involved in my life. It provided me with choices about when and how I was going to receive my cancer treatments. Because of supportive decision making, I was able to let my body and voice guide me with the help of my supporters. I did not have many choices when it came to having cancer, but at least I was able to control when and how I got through it. Full guardianship would have been worse than death to me. I would have lost my choice. If I was not able to pick my support people during my cancer treatments, I would just be a shell of myself now, if I even survived. I'm the type of person that needs to have full trust in the people that are in my life. If someone else picked those for me, I would not fully be able to be the person I am today. I need to make choices for my own life. If a guardian had forced me into treatments, I would have been severely depressed, damaged, and not the person I am today. Support decision making is like a company to me. There's a CEO, the decision maker, and the supporters, the employees. From there, my employees or support people would bring me ideas, and I would either go with the idea or turn them down and we would think of something else. If I turn down an idea and then my company fails, my employees still will support me and guide me through it all. Support decision making offers more options in my life. Support decision making is not for everyone, but I'm glad that I have the choice to use it for myself. Everyone should have the right to choose the way they want to live so they can live their best lives to the fullest. the more choices, the better is something I think we can all agree with. Thank you. And see, I will put my contact information right here. You can see here, all together now for the email, all together now for the YouTube thing, and well, my name for LinkedIn. And here are the resources for support decision making. supportdecisionmaking.org.
Masslegislation.gov for the bills.
And
For both
mass
bills, yeah.
for both bills, and you can see that stuff right there.
Mhm.
And thank you. Uh, uh,
So you can take questions.
give me a sec.
I apologize, I was muted.
No,
So I wanted to thank you, both Nancy and Jonathan for their terrific presentation and just sharing all the, it's not, there's no easy journey. And just your honesty and that sort of thing really is so impressive. I'd love to open it up for questions. Does anybody have questions for Jonathan or his mom and supporter?
I guess I have one question. That was a great job, both of you. You mentioned that you sort of were doing supported decision making before it was actually called supported decision making. I was wondering if you could talk more about that. Like, what is the difference between what you were doing before and what you're doing now? And I guess are maybe they're not differences. Maybe we just sort of need to.
So
make it
we were
official.
doing supported decision-making before Jonathan got sick. So it was supported decision-making.
It wasn't like, oh, let's bring up this new thing to bother
No,
doctors now.
we had gone to, when Jonathan was 16, I had gone to the school and said, always trying to stay one step ahead of the ball, what things do we look for guardianship? What is out there? And I was told, full guardianship. Jonathan took medication. You should have full guardianship, because what's going to happen when he doesn't want to take that medication? And I was like, I don't know. He takes his medication and he's bigger than me. It didn't sit well with me. Long story short, I did some research and I went to some workshops. Thank you. I couldn't think of, you're supporting me. Thank you. I couldn't think of that word, and learned about supportive decision making. And from there, what we did was,
Of course, you brought Dad to one of the
yes, and then I brought my husband to one of the workshops, and then we brought the information to Jonathan. So it was still supported decision making. I was just so intrigued by it, and I'm like, oh, this so feels like Jonathan to me.
Yeah.
So we brought it to Jonathan,
And after they explained it to me, I was like, this is basically what we're already doing, isn't it? And both my parents, aka my mom and dad, just said, yeah, pretty much.
and we're big fans of charting the life course. So we had already gone through that, so we were practicing the charting the life course. So we kind of had certain things that we used already in our daily life with that, and we just made it into a supported decision-making agreement. And as Jonathan grew, his support team grew, and it continues to evolve to this day.
Yes. That has that hand raised, unless you have any more questions, Chelsea.
No, someone else has their hand up. I'm good.
Oh, yeah, Diane has her hand up.
Jonathan, thank you so much for your presentation. I had my video off, but I was sitting here crying. I don't know if it was more joyful tears than anything, but it was really encouraging to hear a gentleman with a disability share how he is really in control of his life, despite the fact that you need some support. So my question is, and I did hear your mom say that you're a supported decision-making team, but other than your mom and your brother, your dad, are there others on your supported decision-making team? And if yes, if you could just share with us, like what led you to choose these people?
Yes, for a second, I'm just gonna bring something up for a second, if you don't mind. I think
We're having a hard time hearing you, Jonathan. So if you want to go closer to
He's
the
gonna
mic.
bring up a picture of a supported decision-making team for everyone.
So give me 1 second. I just need to share the screen one more time. Screen one, share. There we go.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna scroll down now. There we go.
So you can talk a little bit. further
So
about-
right here, you can see, let's start off with my therapist, Mrs. Clifford. She helps me with my mental health. Here we have Maura Sullivan, who, if I'm correct, is here today, who is for my work and advocacy. There's my medical team, my doctors, God bless them all. My friendship category for this guy, Brendan, he used to be my mentor actually, and he was the one that was originally on my original sport team. And then you can see here, my wingman, friendship and current mentor, Adam. Here's another one, Anna Krieger, who is also for my work and advocacy. And here is my finance guy and friendship guy, Mr. Stickney, who is here today. Hey, hey Stick. Here is one of my, I forget what it's called.
She used to be your speech and language pathologist, and she is now one of your friendship advice people.
Yep, Miss Nicole. And let's see, and up here, let's see, my grandparents right here. You can see there for my faith and games and family. And well, you could probably guess who these two are. These three are right here, besides the redhead one. But yeah, that's really my team in a nutshell.
Wow, nice big team. I just want to share with you that my son's name is also Jonathan. And from my understanding, the meaning of the name Jonathan is a gift from God. So thank you again for sharing.
Oh, I never knew that, Diane, and thank you for sharing that.
Any more questions, Diane? Because thank you for that.
I think actually Shannon has a question.
Thank you both so much. This has been such a great presentation. My question is, in conjunction with supported decision-making, do you also have a healthcare proxy and power of attorney in place?
Yes. So he does. He has both in place. And we honestly, what are you doing?
I'm pointing at you.
Oh, yes, I'm talking. So we did not get the healthcare proxy and the power of attorney, honestly, until he got sick. And because that's when we needed it, unfortunately. But I highly recommend anyone thinking of this to go. Everyone should have healthcare proxy and a power of attorney. I feel like it's very important in everyone's journey. And it just kind of brought it to light when he got sick.
I guess the next question is from Steve McCanns. I believe I said your name completely wrong, sir.
Oh, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, sir.
Yeah, you're Steve, you're not muted, so
Oh, sorry. Is there a bill now to, I was kind of confused at the beginning when you were talking about a bill to allow supportive decision making. Is it already in place or what?
So the bill is, we're hoping
We're
will
hoping
pass. It's correct me if I'm wrong, Mara, is it the third time? Third time that it's being presented. We got it through the Senate last session, so we're hoping to push it all the way through this session.
So I'm sorry, I'm confused. What would the bill do or what would it allow that's not currently allowed?
So what it would do, because like I said, we looked at it as an accommodation for Jonathan. It was an essential accommodation that we needed. But what it would do is, because I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, I don't wish having to go into the hospital as your child is sick and having to advocate to get through the door because support people. And one of the things it would do is make this just known. Oh, we're here to see so-and-so. He's, he could say, and my mom and dad, or, whoever are here to my support people. And there would be no pushback. We had a lot of pushback when he got sick. And that was the last thing I wanted to do was explain, but I mean, I did go in prepared, but it took a lot to get through the hospital doors that first day. And then going into chemo and sitting in the chemo infusion rooms with him, like everything was a process, and this would eliminate that process and just make it law and easy for people living with a disability, because you don't need to have to worry about it. It's law, and it's be that much more easier.
And the bill numbers are the bill numbers and the representatives and senator that work on it on the chat. Thank you, Maura, for that.
Sure.
There's a
You know, I
question in
would-
the chat too.
Jonathan,
There's a
oh, sorry.
question in the chat.
Go ahead, Ted.
Oh,
There's a question, chat.
Yeah, the
Tiffany,
question.
oh, yep. What kind of decisions does the supported decision-making team make? So maybe you can,
well, here's an example of how it works. I don't know if this will answer it or not, but I think you know where I'm going.
well, I was going to just say you could just give a specific example, like last time you reached out to Mara as a support person was to ask her about a conference and
Yeah.
different things like that. So,
Basically, like work advice, like I would go to them for, say, for example, let's use Works and Moss, and she's right there. But
not to call you
not
out.
to go out, but you're unmuted, so.
Hmm.
I would go to Mall and say, for example, it was something for the arc or something like that. I would say, hey, do you think this would be a good opportunity? And she would tell me a little bit more about it if she knew a little bit more details than we didn't know, and then we make the decision from there, basically, like if it would be a good idea or a bad idea. Like,
Yeah, so the last time I know, Jonathan was curious about a conference that was brought to his attention. And I remember he said, he asked me, I didn't know anything about it. So he contacted Mara and asked her, what she knew about it and different
wait,
things
I
like
thought you were
that.
saying-
It was both of them,
Oh,
but I
oh.
just figured, well, Mara's here. So he has two work people, but
Yeah.
contact two support people for that, actually. And they both kind of gave some feedback, and from there he was able to decide, how to move forward.
Basically,
And he does that for different, he loves to talk. I know Mr. Stickney, I don't want to have to call you up, but is on here who helps him. He loves to run by financial. He loves to listen to financial stories and run by any financial advice Mr. Stickney has to give him, and just different people giving him the support he's asking for, and he then decides whether he's going to follow that advice or go back and say, hey, I thought about this too, or something like that. And they, it's a support, just like you and I may have supports. It's not written down on paper, but I like to go to certain people and ask for certain advice, and that's kind of how it works.
yes, so Jossie? You have your
Yes,
hand
I guess what I was wondering as to like having your team in place, I wonder if that makes it like easier, because I know sometimes, for instance, I try to think, who could I ask for advice? And I might have to rack my brain for a bit, but it's almost like you almost know it's like, oh, okay, I have these people. I have a medical question, so I'll go to this person. I have an advocacy question, I guess I'll go to that person. So like your team is already in place.
Yeah, it does to an extent, like obviously, like as you saw on the thing, my dad and mom were a bit of everything. So they're usually the people that I would go to first with anything, really. But if I didn't get like an answer that made a little bit more sense from there, then I would go down from there. So if you want to use company terms, like I already used, I'm the CEO, they're the managers, and the rest are the employees.
But it does really break it down nice, I think, Jossie, for him, like, for him to know, like, oh, this is someone I could go contact for, like, I'm not feeling well, I'm going to tell my mom. And then from there, if he tells me, I'm like, what do you think about reaching out to the medical team about this? And, we kind of go from it like that. Jonathan does usually run things by me first, but that's what he chooses to do, it would be okay if he doesn't. I know there are circumstances that, like when he goes out with Adam, who is his wingman, that I do not even want to know the conversations that they had.
I've told him some stuff that I haven't.
I don't, and that's great. It makes me feel as a mom that, you know, as a mom, and especially as a special needs mom, I guess I can say my worry is always what's going to happen when my husband and I are no longer here. And like his brother and him had that conversation, we as a family always just kind of assumed Eric would take that role. Eric assumed that role. But I think as Eric's also living this type of, life with Jonathan, and he plays a lot of different roles, thought, and I commend him for it, to ask Jonathan what he wanted, even though as a mom and dad, my husband and I just expected them to live together. But having a supported decision-making team for me gives me a little bit of weight off my shoulders that God forbid something does happen tomorrow to my husband and I. Jonathan has a lot of supporters who truly he trusts because he picks them, and who truly love him, and I know would step up. And as a mom, I cannot tell you the peace that gives me in my heart, because I know that he will be supported.
That's great. Thank you. There's a couple of questions in the chat from Linda. How did you choose your financial person? Was it a trusted family friend or another resource?
Well, tell them how you met Mr. Stickney.
Oh,
Mr. Stickney, really sorry you joined.
I am so sorry.
Tell them a story of how you met Mr. Stickney.
Yeah. So, how I met Mr. Stickney, it started off as like a little bit of I guess you could say a transaction. I used to have a bakery. I'm going to use that with quotation marks, but I used to make pies for people and get a little bit of cash out of it. So we started off with that. First off, he would, was it that I would hand it off to
Can
him?
I back up a little bit?
Please do.
So when we first met Mr. Stickney, Jonathan's therapist, he used to bake pies for her all the time. So it was Thanksgiving time and she's just like, hey, make me some pies, Jonathan. And she had Mr. Stickney over the house and he tasted one of those pies and was like, where did you get that pie? And that kind of formed this, okay, now Mr. Stickney wants a pie from Jonathan, and Jonathan was a little anxious to
Meet people.
and trust and open his window of.
Could I back up for a
You
second?
go right ahead.
This is a loaded question, but so a little bit of a backstory between why I have trust issues. I'm just gonna go into it very briefly, and then we'll get back into the story. So I'll get to that one after this one, but so say for example, so at the age of when I was in second grade, I was physically and mentally abused by teachers, two different schools. Eventually, I was homeschooled by my mom, and from there, I severely had trust issues. I feared leaving the house for a while, and from there, it kind of built up, and I was finally starting to let myself open up around this time. Now we can continue where we left off.
Okay, so Jonathan really had a lot of trust issues. So he trusted his therapist wholly. So she said, this would be nice. So we baked Mr. Stickney a pie. We brought it over, and we used to kind of just stand in his driveway and hand over the pie, and it developed into a lot of pies, and and Mr. Stickney allowing Jonathan to go at his own pace to get to know him, which eventually would go to, oh, now we're going to chat for
a few
minutes.
And then it's going to be like, oh, let's just go over to Mr. Stickney's, and then it just became more of a friendship than a transactional thing. And then eventually, recently, is this where you're going with this?
Yep.
And then recently, eventually, my mom used to be all the time with us. Eventually, we just decided, hey, why don't both of us just go out and, I don't know, like see the Mario movie, just the two of us.
Mhm.
And from there, we saw the Mario movie. It wasn't including her, and from there we had a good time. Yeah.
How was
Great.
that, Paul? Did we do good?
Awesome. So another question is about documents that you know you use for. Do you have it in writing? Who your supported decision-making team is and their roles and that sort of thing?
Yes, so it is in writing. I will say that before Jonathan got sick, it was only on the Charting for Life integrated star. That was how we kind of documented it. When Jonathan got sick, I called a good friend of mine and I was like, I need those forms now. And she sent them to me. And we filled them out so that we would have like a document, and we got them signed by a notary republic, or is that what they're called? We got them notarized or whatever. Just because I knew we would be going into the hospital and things had to be done fast. So it was the first time we kind of like really filled out the document. Again, was when he got sick, but we were using the Charting for Life as his support team, and his IEP when he turned 18 states that he is using supported decision making as his form of guardianship moving forward. And it shows the Charting for Life forms. And we still use the Charting for Life forms today, actually, every year when we update his IEP. So that was kind of how we went about it. But there are, if you go to supporteddecisionmaking.org, which is on one of the slides that Jonathan shared, you can find the forms there also.
Terrific. And then Don had a question about in practice, say in a medical situation, will there be situations such as surgery when a person's normal capacity of making one's own decisions would be unable to do so? So I can imagine that supported decision-making team would require sign-offs like HIPAA, authorization, privacy to be allowed in the decision-making discussion. I think that this legislation can facilitate this. Any thoughts on that?
I think, I remember when Jonathan was first diagnosed, and there was a big push for me to pull guardian papers for Jonathan. It was a big, big push. And I said, no way. And the reason was brought to my attention because what are you going to do if he does not want to continue with treatments? And, I couldn't even fathom anything that was going on. So I said, I don't know. But again, like I said, when we were going over the presentation, it still wouldn't have been done differently. If Jonathan needs surgery and let's say doesn't want to have it, that would be his decision. We would of course meet as his supporters, and I would think he'd want to talk to his medical team. All of this, it would be up to him. I mean, he has had issues where so his, just for example, his sarcoma tumor is still on his vertebrae, and it was not able to be safely removed. At this time, Jonathan is fine with that. And it does cause him mobility issues and etc., all sorts of fun stuff. If it was brought to Jonathan's attention tomorrow that his surgeon is in touch with us every 6 months, if not sooner, after every scan he has, that they wanted to do surgery and here are the pros and cons. And Jonathan said, you know what, I don't want to do it. That would be his decision at that time. And I would support him.
And if I could for a second expand on something you said earlier,
Sure.
It was about the guardianship part.
Mhm.
Here's the thing about guardianship for me specifically. I want to say before I begin, I have no problem with guardianship, and there's a lot of cases that guardianship is preferable instead of support decision making. But when it comes to me specifically, guardianship would have been worse than death, like I said before. Because if I had no choice in this scenario, let's just say, for example, I did have guardianship. Let's say, for example, I did. Let me tell you what would happen. Here's the thing. I would have found some way to quit with the treatment because honestly, I would have became so depressed, so like lifeless that it might just look like it's just wasting people's time to even save me at that point because at that point, like he's going to live a more miserable life than he went in with. Sure, sure, like when you go into cancer, your main goal is survival. Yes, it is. But how good is survival if you can't even know how to survive? Sure, you live, but then what? Then are you going to still be happy? Are you still going to be joyful? Is things going to still be joyful? No, like sure, you might be surviving, but up here, it does things to you. It really does. It does a lot to you.
And our relationship
Yeah,
would
like-
not have been the same. If I had said, Jonathan, too bad, get back in the car and we're going right to Boston right now, and you're gonna finish your treatment today. How would that have turned out?
Let's just say you see the back and forth here today with us. Like we're jokey, we're calm, but we're like close basically. Like you could tell like the closeness of us. That wouldn't exist. That would have been killed instantly. Like all the trust, all the buildup, all that stuff would have been boom, killed in an instant. And I don't know what would have happened from there. I generally don't. And I'm grateful to not know. Because honestly, I'm grateful for support decision making. I truly believe support decision making saved my life. Not just because I can now advocate for it or I survived or anything like that. No, because it allowed me to take care of not only my physical body, but my mental health as well. So I truly believe support decision making saved my life for that.
And it allowed his voice to be heard, which is so important to him in his journey, Yeah.
Like
validated.
I know we're giving you more than I forget who even asked this question to be honest, but I know we're giving you more than you bargained for, but as you remember, like with the trust issues that I mentioned when I was talking about when I was first introduced with stickney, like all that stuff just comes back like with everything. So yeah. Got any more questions?
That's terrific. Anyway, yeah, any more questions from everybody? So really, Jonathan and Nancy, thank you so much for such a informative and helpful presentation. Couple questions. Yes, we have recorded the video and it will be up on our YouTube channel. And usually it takes about a week to get it up there, but it will be there. And so appreciate everyone's time and learning about this incredibly important issue, and especially your learned experience, which is so helpful in helping people on their journey. So thank you so much. All righty. Okay. I hope everybody has a terrific day. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.